My name is Gitonga. I'm a counselor, an author, a corporate trainer, and a very grateful recovering alcoholic addict. I welcome you to this podcast on understanding trauma, that is healing. Today we are going to talk about something many people carry silently. We say trauma is not what happened to you, but what happened inside you because of what happened to you. Wow. Yeah, if we look at the history of trauma from African perspective, long before the white man came into Africa, people were living in a very healthy society. There was support from every corner in our community, in an African community, that is. The older generation was supporting the middle generation, and the middle generation was supporting the teens, and the teens were supporting the young ones. There was that mentorship. There was that support. There was sharing. And people were getting avenues or opportunities to share their feelings and also get some advice from those who have experienced before. And people were living a happy, joyous, and free life. Yeah, they were eating healthy foods. They respected the environment, the rivers, the waters were kept clean. The forests were taken care of. Yeah, the animals were loved and taken care of. There was that joy of oneness. Yeah, what we call Ubuntu. I am, you are, I am, therefore you are, or you are, therefore I am. But when white men came, they came with two things. There were the positive things that they brought us, like hospitals, books to read. Yeah, all those positive things. But they also caused a lot of, they affected the board that we used to experience, The families were disbanded, the men were abducted, women were exposed to so much pain, emotional pain. And that cohesiveness was broken completely. And people started fearing each other. Mistrust were planted, And the generation that found the white man found was suppressed so much. They were suppressed. They were unable to express their feelings, especially the older generation. They were faced with a lot of oppression and suppressed completely, And the children that were there at that time, they saw things they have never seen before. Old men respected in our society, beaten by the white men, terrorized by the white men, and their women and children beaten and isolated, and they were also isolated. And that created a lot of an emotional wound, what we call trauma. And those people were so much traumatized that when they started bringing up children, they had trauma in them. And that's where now children were never allowed to speak their mind, to speak their feelings. So that trauma was passed from generation to another. And I remember when we were growing up in school, you could hear a teacher calling you some names, some names and unlaughable names, Yeah, being disciplined, like I may call it. It was like the punishment that we used to get. They were traumatizing, Those trauma was passed from one generation to another in the family. People are calling us, the parents calling children names, unspeakable names, just shouting at children, young children, Yeah, and calling them names, unspeakable names. And these children have grown up, and now they have born they are bringing up what the generation we are calling Gen Z. And that trauma has been passed from one generation to another. And remember, it becomes more and more, So, and that's why you see Gen Zs are experiencing this trauma very much, because they can see it. Yeah, they can see their parents who have been suppressed, even in workplaces. They cannot speak their feelings. And that's why in workplaces, Gen Z are unable to tolerate some of the things they are experiencing. They can see this trauma, manifestation of trauma everywhere. And that's why most of them are harboring suicidal thoughts. Others are behaving in a way where old generation think that they are don't care. But they are not don't care. They are seeing things that the older generation was suppressed and they were oppressed, they cannot see. And that's why there is a disconnect between the parents and the younger generation. Because the younger generation can see exactly what the older generation is trying to hide, or what the older generation is going through. They are seeing trauma, the older generation, how they were traumatized, how they are trying to numb their trauma, Yeah, and the older generation now is thinking the younger generation are becoming disrespectful. And this is what we are experiencing in our society. Yeah, so that trauma has been passed from one generation to another, and now we are living in a information era where these young people can access a lot of information and clearly understand what is going on. And that's why we are saying that our hope as a society lies in our younger generation. The younger generation, if they come together, they'll be able to face this trauma and start trauma healing. Yeah, because trauma is it's manifesting everywhere. You look in our family, people are drinking, trying to numb trauma. People are getting addictions, all types of addiction, trying to numb that inner pain, emotional pain, trauma, and they become addicts. And that's why everywhere you see now our country has become like a mental institute. All the way from leadership, from our politicians, all the way to our young children. You find people stealing billions of money because of trauma they went through. And this is manifesting everywhere. People stealing resources uncontrollably. Others killing each other in relationships. And others now, it's like we are glorifying those now negativity that is all over in our social media. People dancing in a nude, all these things. We are all trying to numb this pain we are calling trauma. So let's look at it closely. What is trauma? Trauma is not just big event like accident or violence. It can be childhood neglect. Yeah, when we neglect our children, they develop that trauma. It can be emotional rejection, when people are not allowed to express their emotions. Yeah, like in a family where now a Gen Z is trying to tell the parent how they're experiencing. And the parents, they don't understand. They cannot understand because they were never mentored into expressing their feelings. And that's why you see when Gen Z and parents are talking, the only language you hear is, Mom, huwezi elewa. You can't understand. Gen Z telling the mom, you can't understand. And the parent are telling Gen Z, in our time, you could not speak back at your parent. And the Gen Z is seeing this is oppression. That's not respect. It's oppression. That disconnect now comes in, Yeah, and another cause of trauma was it's poverty and instability. And that's why people are stealing right, left, because if you are brought up in a poverty and unstable family, we develop scarcity mentality. And now the worst poverty is not seeing what you have, but seeing what you don't have. And that's why people are trying to accumulate more and more and more and more, because it's a hole, it's a wound in them that they are trying to heal through stealing public resources. Yeah, and trauma can also come from loss of a parent or growing up in a stressful family. These are the causes of trauma. And trauma is any experience that overwhelms your ability to cope. Any experience that overwhelms your ability to cope is trauma. Yeah, that's why people are looking for coping mechanism from other sources. But unfortunately now, trauma leads to addiction, Yeah, let's look at the types of trauma. Yeah, and we say trauma is not just what happened to us. It's what happened inside us as a result of what we go through. Yeah, so the first kind of trauma we are talking about is acute trauma. One big shock. This comes from a single overwhelming event. It happens suddenly and shakes your sense of safety. An example is a serious accident, losing a loved one unexpectedly, or physical or emotional assault. These are some of examples that cause acute trauma. And how does it feel like? It feels like fear, shock, confusion, trouble in sleeping, that is amnesia, you are not able to sleep well, flashback or intrusive thoughts, The body and mind struggle to process what just happened. Yeah. These are some of that is what we call acute trauma. The other kind of trauma we talk about is chronic trauma. Chronic trauma is trauma that comes from being exposed so much to stressful situations. And it can, some example is workload, workplaces. In workplaces, there are people who are exposed to too much pressure in workplaces. Yeah, also, or living in a toxic or abusive relationship. Yeah, maybe you are married to alcoholics. Yeah, it can cause chronic trauma. Yeah, and long-term illness or financial struggle. They also causes trauma. When one has been experiencing or has been having health issues for a long time, or even struggled for a long time because of, financially. What it feels like? It feels like constant anxiety or tension. The person becomes now, he is always in anxiety and tension. The other one is emotional exhaustion and feeling trapped or helpless. Yeah, the nervous system stays on high alert for too long. That's chronic trauma. And chronic trauma, we'll see in the next episode that it also leads to what we call psychosomatic disorders. These are now stress-related ailments like BP, high blood pressure, yeah, and other issues, health issues. We now come to the third, which is complex trauma, deep wounds over time. And this is what we are dealing with, most of us, complex trauma, being exposed to a stressful environment as a child for a long period of time. It comes from long-term exposure to trauma, often during childhood, especially in relationship where safety should exist. You can imagine caregivers being traumatized and the child witnessing maybe two traumatized adults living together. It becomes now chronic complex trauma to the child. And especially these days, when we say we are having marriages, if you look at most of the marriages, if you look at it critically, you realize they are trauma bonding. Yeah, people going through similar experiences in childhood, they end up hooking together and becoming bonded by trauma, common trauma. And that's why when they start living together, within a very short time, the things they do to each other becomes now trauma passed on to their children. Yeah, and that's why you see most of the young people are avoiding things like marriages. They don't want to get commitments because they can see how trauma is manifesting in their parents. Yeah, and we need to heal this. We need to face this trauma because it's manifesting everywhere in our relationship. Yeah, so examples of childhood trauma or complex trauma is growing up in neglect, abuse, or instability, or repeated betrayal or emotional harm from caregivers. You realize some of the caregivers that the children trust, they are the source of their trauma. Children get raped, sexually abused by the most trusted caregivers, and they suppress that trauma into the deep in them, and these traumas, they grow, they start manifesting in adulthood. This complex trauma, it affects self-worth. Having a feeling of I'm not good enough. It affects relationship, trust issues, fears, all fear of closeness. People don't want to get close in relationship. They block because there is mistrust. And also identity and emotional regulations. They lose their identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they are good at. Maybe they were criticized when they were young, and they carry those voices of their parents in their head. So they resort into what we call self-criticism. Every time they want to do something, there is a critical mind. There's a mind in them that is criticizing them. And this affects them, the personal relationship and also intrapersonal relationship. Yeah, so it doesn't just affect what you feel. It shapes who you believe you are. Yeah, so trauma, we need to deal with the trauma. And trauma is drowning our country. It's drowning our country. It is affecting every area of aspect of our lives. And they need to be addressed. It need to be addressed. Those are the three kinds of trauma that is manifesting in our life. Signs you may be carrying. What are signs that you may be carrying trauma? Yeah. If you find yourself in constant anxiety or overthinking, it's a manifestation that there could be trauma. Anger or emotional numbness, anger outburst or emotional numbness is a sign that there is an underlying cause, which could be trauma. Addiction, trying to numb feelings through addiction. It could be whether it's alcohol, betting, or work. There are people who also get addicted to work. It could be a way of a coping mechanism. If you find yourself having difficulty in trusting people, it could be another symptom of trauma. Yeah? Self-sabotage, that every time things start going well, you find yourself sabotaging it. It could be a manifestation of trauma. Yeah? Sometimes what we call bad behavior is actually unhealed pain. Yeah, what we call, sometimes when you see people doing things, bad behavior, like being sexually addicted, or even getting into pornography, and it could and masturbation. It could be a sort of trauma. Maybe the person was abused sexually in their young age. Yeah. So what we call bad behavior, they are just a symptom of underlying unhealed pain. Yeah, trauma and addiction. Yeah, many addiction are coping mechanism. Alcohol, drugs, even work can become escape routes. Yeah, addiction is not the problem. It is often an attempt to solve a deeper pain. Yeah. And how does trauma affect the body and the mind? Remember, the body stores trauma. The mind may forget, but the body stores the trauma. You may live in fight, anger. You may live in flight, anxiety, all flees, numbness. Yeah, when somebody comes close to you, maybe you had a parent who was always criticizing you. When somebody tried to correct you, you feel, you freeze. And now fight comes in. Yeah? You don't want to hear what they are saying. You just apply anger as a coping mechanism, because that person, that experience has taken you to a childhood experience. The body becomes tense because the body remembers. And now when it happens, it now blocks the flow of communication. And now that's how it affects the even communication. Yeah, and even relationship becomes affected, because the cause of trauma, once the mind, the body, when you're exposed to this, what you used to experience in childhood, maybe somebody is just trying to get close to you and distrust is there, you withdraw emotionally. And you realize that we are rejecting even people who can be genuinely loving us, not because we want to, but because of our childhood experiences. Yeah, healing from trauma. How do we heal from trauma? One is awareness, recognizing the wound. The other one is talking, safe conversation, counseling. Yeah, therapy. We need to speak it out, slapping it out. It helps us to grow. We also have support groups. Yeah, we need to be supported in a safe place. And the other one is spiritual connection. That is prayer and having quiet time, reflecting. Yeah, reflecting on our lives and experiencing that oneness with our power greater than us. And also journaling. Keep on journaling our feelings, our thoughts. Yeah, because the more we escape from trauma, the more it becomes persistent, and the more it manifests in other areas, it trickles to other areas of our lives. And learning to feel again, staying with the feelings, just allowing ourselves to feel. And when the anger comes, it's good to dig deeper and see, where is this coming from? Yeah, because it could be coming from our critical parents in our mind. When somebody tried to correct you, and it reminds you of your parents, or even caregivers, or even authorities that used to criticize you when you are young, and now we mistake it from, we move from now to those days, in an instant. And now we are resisting, because now we have grown, we are now fighting back. And we end up sabotaging, even in our workplaces, where people are trying to correct us, and we are behaving in a weird way, and people are wondering what is wrong with us. And this could be manifestation of trauma. So we need to face these things. We need to face them, because if we don't, they are killing us. They are killing they are sabotaging every area of our lives. And we are having conflict in all area of our lives. And the only way is to heal. There's no other way. So if you are experiencing some weird things that you don't know, you cannot explain where they are coming from, I would strongly suggest a psychological checkup. Yeah, so, and together we can get out of this. And congratulations to Gen Z, because no matter how much we say they are disconnected from life, they are able to see clearly what is happening. And with support and oneness and coming together, they can be able to bring what we are looking for, healing. Yeah, they can be able to bring healing in our community and bring back the oneness. And we get a new way of living that we have never even experienced. Yeah, a new way of living that is beautiful, a new way of living that is happy, joyous, and free, because they are aware. They are aware that they are aware of what is happening. And these are the people we need to help us, to support us, yeah, in healing. They may look like they don't know what they want. Yeah, but given an opportunity, they know much. Yeah, yeah, they know much. And that's why they're able to see us clearly as their parent. And they're able to see, they are able to say no without fear, especially when it comes to being exposed to trauma, yeah, or traumatic experiences. They're able to say no and to stand up for their rights. Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah, see you in the next episode. Thanks.